There is a dead zone in agency operations after 10K a month, but before you get to 20K a month. That kills more agency owners than any other part of the agency growth process. Why what looks like a simple doubling problem is actually a graveyard of broken dreams that you want to avoid like the plague. After coaching dozens of agency owners through this plateau over the last 18 months, I can tell you with confidence exactly what causes so many deaths of so many agencies in this crucial plateau and how and what you need to do to avoid it. And I've discovered that the problem isn't usually a marketing or a sales technique issue. It's usually a mindset issue. It's the fundamental shift between freelancer psychology and true business owner mentality. So today I'm going to show you the exact framework that I've applied successfully to agency owners at around the 10 to 12K per month mark that's helped them to grow to 20, 30, and even 50K per month successfully. Not by working twice as hard, guys, but by building systems that are going to work while you sleep. So here's the problems. This is why most agency owners will get stuck around 10K. You got to understand the psychology and operational barriers so that you can navigate them proactively. The first thing is this comfort trap. 10K feels like making it, so the urgency to grow decreases. Second is complexity overwhelm. You're building systems that most people have never built before. The third is cash flow confusion. Revenue fluctuations are going to make it hard to want to invest in growth infrastructure instead of playing it safe. The time paradox is that growth requires time investments when you're already maxed out on service delivery. And then the real problem is the identity crisis, which is moving from I do the work to I manage the people who do the work. And then finally, you're going to face some risk aversion, which is 10K feels safer than the uncertainty of scaling to 20K and beyond. So the framework I'm going to teach you guys below specifically addresses each barrier systematically. We're going to reduce complexity overwhelm, prevent cash flow fluctuations as much as we can, handle the longer decision cycles necessary as you grow, work without constant oversight, and reduce closing pressure and improve conversion, which is my specialty. If you don't know who I am, my name is Drew Long. I've helped sales teams scale from 5 people to 150 people, from $150,000 per month in profit to over $6 million per month, $81 million per year. And recently, my company Sales by Tomorrow has helped companies scale from $0 in profit to over $1 million in EBITDA profit in under 18 months. So with that said, let's get into the techniques. We're going to talk about speed to lead. We're going to talk about outreach and marketing, project management. We're going to talk about the mental side of it, and we're going to talk about the results that you can expect to get. So let's dive into the speed to lead foundation. Why 5 minutes is going to change everything in your business. One of the first things I do when I go into any company to evaluate their sales team is I look at their speed to lead. And there's a reason I do that, because it's the very top of the funnel. And if you are leaking leads at the top of the funnel, nothing I do down funnel is going to have as much of an impact as fixing your speed to lead problem. So what you should be thinking about with speed to lead is, are you contacting interested replies to your marketing within 5 minutes? You have a 5-minute window. In some industries, as small as a 3-minute window. And in that 3 to 5 minute window, you need to be doing everything in your human power and your machine power to get in touch with that lead. That could be double or triple tapping them on the phone call. That could be replying instantly. That could be setting an automated reply guy on everyone who emails you back from your cold email. So here's what we're going to talk about. If you're in the agency space, most agency competitors of yours are responding within hours or days. But if the prospect forgets that they even put in an inquiry, it's not going to do you much good. 6 hours later, someone's probably had a meal. They've had 4 other meetings. Maybe they've gone and swam in the ocean. They've talked to their mom on the phone. They're not thinking about putting in the inquiry anymore. You have a 5-minute window before they move on mentally. And if you do reply within 5 minutes in an industry where the average is hours or days, think of how much farther ahead are you going to set yourself from the competitors. Very important for those of you in a commodified or a highly competitive market. So this isn't about personal discipline or being glued to your computer monitor 24/7. You have to build systems that handle the leads immediately. One agency owner I coached saw conversion drop massively when he switched to manual scheduling as opposed to Calendly because the human touch disappeared. The human touch is critically important, but you still also need to avail yourselves of the automations that are also going to help you do this. So what I'd recommend is a hybrid system. You can have automation and you can have a human response. So maybe you have a lead-based response system like a chat bot that's guaranteed to respond within 2 to 3 minutes, and then have it ping a thread to your mobile phone so you get looped in regardless of what you're doing. And then if you're awake, not only has a robot respond, but then you can also chime in and say, oh, hey, John, thanks for your inquiry. My automated response got to you, I see, but I happen to be awake and I wanted to just chat with you. Do you have a few minutes to connect on the phone right now about what you're interested in? Or you could hire a CSM or a setter, appointment setter, or an inbox manager to do the same thing. And then you could automate after you've established the winning SOP. That means the exact script that's going to be most effective for your product service at converting someone to a phone call from an interested warm reply. You're going to turn that SOP into an automation after you know that it works. So a lesson from Elon Musk and Tesla SpaceX is you don't automate until you actually have a winning procedure. Don't prematurely automate something that's not guaranteed to work. If you're using Smart Lead, shout out to the Smart Lead guys. Consider adding on their Rev Reply feature, which is natively in the inbox. The stats are brutal here. Leads not contacted within 15 minutes have an insane drop-off rate, especially for higher ticket services. Every minute you delay a response, you're basically giving qualified prospects away to the competitors who are going to respond before you. So there's something like 86% of leads in most B2B markets end up going with the vendor or the agency that responded soonest, 86%. And then your actual reply rate is going to drop off a cliff at some key points, 5 minutes, 10 minutes, 15 minutes, 2 hours is a big one. If you're in B2C space, there's a huge drop-off cliff in response rates after 2 hours. So regardless, this is why it's so critical to nail your speed to lead. At 10K, you can afford to lose leads because you don't have that many anyway. If you want to scale beyond that, you have to really dial this in. Thousands and thousands of dollars in missed revenue is what you cannot afford to let walk away from you if you're going to scale above 20K. Now, if you're ready to hire an inbox manager or a setter, I've got you covered. I've prepared a complete job description that you can use to advertise for an inbox manager, plus a bunch of training SOPs you can use to train this person if this is your first time. You can get that in the first link in the description below, completely free. Put in your email. It'll take you to Gumroads, put in $0. It's completely free. Put in your email, and it'll automatically allow you to download that entire package of things to basically set up your first inbox manager or setter. Okay. Part 2, critical mistake. I see so many agency owners do this. What happens? They hit 10K, they stop or they curtail outreach. Why do they do that? Because fulfillment becomes their bottleneck and they get scared. I'm not going to be able to fulfill for these clients if I don't stop outreaching. And that is a self-sabotage move, guys. You can't do that. You pause outreach to get operations sorted. I'd have done this myself. When I first started my agency, I did this exact same thing myself. And then it's extremely painful to restart your outreach and your outbound marketing. So at that point, the problem, what happens is you become a glorified freelancer instead of a business owner. You spend all your time on 1 or 2 clients, something goes south, and then you have no backup pipeline. You're trading time for money instead of building a sustainable business model. The pause in lead generation creates a 2 to 3 month lag before new business starts flowing again. It's an absolute momentum killer. Think about this. Let's say you're ripping cold emails. Even pausing cold emails for 2 to 3 weeks could cause a 2 to 3 month lag because in B2B and agency space, the cash conversion cycle, the deal cycle, the close cycle is going to be probably 2 to 3 weeks anyway. So by the time you realize revenue is dropping, you're back to square one, trying to build pipeline. Well, at the same time, now you're dealing with fulfillment and pipeline problems, cash flow problems. Here's the happy path. The agency owners who I've helped break through to 20K plus maintain outreach systematically, if not double down and dump more money into a second outreach channel alongside their first. They understand that pipeline and delivery are parallel systems, not sequential. And here's the underlying truth, guys. You have to really believe you deserve the growth while building the capacity to handle the growth. Sometimes in business, or I should say almost always in business, things are going to break. You're either going to have breakage in your operations because you're onboarding too many new people, you're closing too many deals and your operations is breaking, or you're going to have breakage in your sales system and operations is going to be slack because you stopped outbound, for example, and now you don't have enough sales coming in and your salespeople are quitting because they can't make any money with you. So you need to understand there's probably always going to be breakage in either the front end or the back end of the business. Ideally, you should just strive not to have breakage in both sides at once. So what I'm telling you is keep your outbound marketing, keep everything going. If things are going a little haywire in fulfillment, don't worry about it. Hire people, break even if you have to, just to keep the ball rolling, and pour more money into the front end of the business and automate as you go. Most people want to feel ready for more clients, but the thing is, regardless where you're at in your entrepreneurial journey, you're never going to feel ready. You have to really promote yourself before you feel ready. You have to go for the brass ring and really swing for the fences, and that additional volume coming into your personal container of money will force that money container to be open and force it bigger. I've never ever created a bigger money container and then it's followed by the money flowing in. It's always been I forced myself to take on more than I thought I could handle, and that forced my so-called money container to expand. That's what you guys have to do. Basically, you have to think, if you're familiar with the corporate mindset, promote yourself before you get the next job. Start doing the next job before you've actually got it, and then it'll make it very natural transition to the next job once they finally do promote you. Well, it's the same thing in entrepreneurship. Okay, here's another really critical part of this, the B2B sales evolution from individual to enterprise thinking. As you move from 10 to 20K, your ideal client profile shifts from selling to other solopreneurs to more established companies. And this requires a complete sales methodology change. And I've done a variety of videos on B2B selling and versus B2C. So hit the up corner somewhere up here. I'm sure I'm going to have my editor put other videos you can watch if you're interested in that topic, and we'll link them in the show notes down below. So the B2B versus B2C mindset shift. B2B is 95% logical versus B2C being 95% emotional. In larger companies, people aren't trying to win. They're playing not to lose. They care more about covering themselves and not making mistakes than getting the best results. When you're selling to small vendors like yourself, then they're caring oftentimes more about I'm playing to win, I'm going for broke, and it's a more emotional sale. And you have to look at my videos like the emotional identity sale to get them to get across the finish line. As you go to selling higher ticket packages, higher tickets, larger engagements to bigger companies, then you're selling more of logic to committees, and you have to become more of a project manager mindset. Over $10 million revenue companies can afford established vendors. So they're going to choose based on, is this going to make me look bad in my annual review, rather than will this get the best outcome? It's not going to matter as much that you're new and scrappy and hungrier and you're going to do better than every established vendor, and it's literally you doing all the work and you're going to crush it for them. They don't necessarily care about that. They just want like the best vendor. There's a saying, nobody gets fired for buying IBM. And if you know the history of computers, you know that IBM was like the biggest mainframe provider for decades. And so companies buying B2B computers would always buy IBM because they were such an established name. Think about Apple, right? Like no one would call you crazy for buying Apple products because they're omnipresent. Well, it's the same thing. So your sales approach has to shift from benefit focused to risk focused. Instead of we're going to increase your revenue, you've got to be speaking to them like we're going to ensure this campaign doesn't fail. And unlike B2C or smaller B2B deals where you might close in 1 to 2 calls, B2B with mid-market or enterprise clients are going to require 6 to 12 touch points from cold traffic before they sign and pay. This isn't a bug. This is a feature of how large organizations function. So again, the qualification evolution. At 10K, you're selling to decision makers who are emotional, who can say yes immediately. At 20K plus, especially these bigger deal sizes, you're often selling to influencers who need to build internal case studies for your solution. Now, I have a training on the pitch panel method on how you can do that. And I will include in the package of resources down below my one-page business case, which will help you a lot selling B2B. It's a tool I've used. It's not a tool I originated, just so you know, but it's a tool that's very helpful in selling B2B. So you can always also grab that again for free at the download link below. So really, you have to change from being kind of a one-call close, emotional master, jiu-jitsu master in selling smaller companies. If you want to sell bigger companies, you have to change to being more of a project manager. The more people you talk to at a big company, the more likely they are to pick you and go with you. The more you can give a great proof of concept that's often free or low cost, the more you can prove results without them making a big commitment. And the more people you know, the more people you talk to, the more time you spend with them, the better you'll do with B2B clients. Small sidebar. All right. Now, we're going to have to also train you on selling to non-decision makers, which is often called coaching the sale. So as you target larger companies, you're going to increasingly deal with non-decision makers who can only influence, they can't directly purchase. Instead of fighting against this and like throwing a big fit and trying to fight to get the CEO on the phone, you're going to make it your competitive advantage. So when you get a non-decision maker on the call, you're not going to try to close them. Instead, you're going to interview them about the company politics and decision making. Pretend you're now Joe Rogan, you're a podcast host, and you're just interviewing them about how the company does business internally. You're going to ask them about the company goals and department priorities, who else is involved in decisions, what the decision-making process looks like, and their timeline for evaluation and implementation. How important is the goal? Important is the goal to the company? How long has it been a problem? What else have they tried to fix it? What has worked and what hasn't? What other agencies or vendors they have engaged and what they did, etc. Right? You're going to ask them all these deep dive discovery questions in this interview. And then you're going to help them create a spreadsheet that their company will use to evaluate vendors. I also have this as a link in the description. You can get that for free as well. I built this matrix spreadsheet. You can download it. You can play with it, modify it, whatever you want. Go ahead. Ask them about the importance and the weightings of different rankings, whether it's cost, security, implementation speed, technical capabilities. You can screen share the Excel doc that I provide you down below. You can build it together. You're literally helping them design the evaluation criteria, and that is going to be in your favor because you're going to be able to tilt and heavily weight the evaluation criteria towards what your agency is uniquely good at and specifically good at. I put a downloadable template. Again, you can get that right under this video. Then you're going to have to Position yourself as a project manager. Position yourself as helping them get the outcome they want, not just trying to close a sale. Map out their timeline. When do they meet? Who will they present to? What will they present? When will the decision be made? How soon do they want to get this done? The strategic advantage here is while your competitors are frustrated by non-decision makers, you understand how to use them to influence and guide the entire buying process before your competitors even get in the room. If you use this competitive decision-making criteria matrix, if you're the first person that they talk to, the first vendor they talk to on their decision-making journey, this is actually going to put you in a premier position because you can shape how they think about every other vendor. This matrix tool actually gives you an advantage if you're first. I used to hate being the first vendor they talk to because I knew it was going to be a long follow-up process, but now I love it because it allows me to shape their thinking, shape their perceptions, and ultimately guide their whole decision-making process and seed different criteria they should look at that I know will make me look great and make other vendors look crap in comparison. So you need to have that level of reality distortion based on your knowledge of your industry. All right, now we've got to talk about follow-up systems that scale, the 3-to-1 framework. So at 10K, you probably have only enough leads that you can follow up with everyone manually. You don't really need a CRM. At 20K plus, you're going to need systematic nurturing that works without your constant attention. And the fortune is in the follow-ups, as I've said many times, as a lot of people have said. And if you're not following up systematically, you are not probably going to scale effectively to 20K. You're certainly not going to get as much out of your ad spend or your marketing spend, and you're not going to be as profitable as you otherwise would. So you want, at minimum, to get to 20K, 3 different follow-up flows, interested replies that didn't book meetings, put them in a 12-month sequence, 1 per month, 1 email per month. People who book intro calls but didn't show up for the kickoff, meaning they booked calls to speak with you on a sales call, discovery call, but they didn't show up for it. Put them in a 6-month follow-up sequence, 1 per month. And then existing clients for upsells and nurturing, ongoing client management, but there should also be an ongoing nurturing sequence for your existing clients. Yes, the fortune is in the follow-up includes predominantly premier existing clients, because who is the easiest person to sell? It's someone who's already paid you. So you're going to prioritize follow-up and upsells for your existing clients. That's one of the keys to getting out of the 10 to 20K a month bucket. Here's the 3-2-1 structure. First month, 3 touches in week 1, 2 touches in week 2, 1 goodbye touch in week 3. Months 2 through 12, monthly touch points. Of course, you're going to have unsubscribe options for all of those. So again, that's 3-2-1. Here's the content mix. You're going to rotate between industry news relevant to their business, your company updates and new product announcements, and fresh case studies and results from your company. The best tool for bringing a cold lead back to life is fresh case studies that are pertinent to them. We just did this for this X company that's very similar to you. That is going to be like catnip, and it's going to bring them back. These systems are going to create a pipeline that's always working in the background, even when you're focused on delivery or ops. Leads from 6 months ago will start converting just as new leads enter the top of your funnel. Remember, every lead needs to elapse into their conversion window, and fewer than 5% of leads will be meeting you in that window. So every lead you get, you might have to wait 6 months to a year until they're ready to buy. That's fine. You just need to be omnipresent, top of mind for 6 months to a year. That's why you have to set up these automated conversion systems, automated long-term systems. And to further help you out, because I'm an insanely generous sales trainer, I've put together a 12-month follow-up sequence overview. Just fill in the blanks with your own content, and you can download that in the link below as well. Okay, so here's the final challenge of all this. You're going to have to integrate all these systems, right? So you're going to require speed to lead systems that are automated, that work 24/7 and on weekends. You're going to have sales processes that are designed for longer B2B cycles, including some resources that I gave you for that. You're going to have follow-up sequences that nurture without your constant oversight. You're going to have delivery systems that don't require your constant oversight. And you're going to have pipeline management that prevents the feast or famine cycles that is so typical when you're at 10K a month in business. You are not going to build all these systems while maintaining 10K in revenue. You need to build them during growth, which means you have to accept some chaos while new systems come online. It's okay. I'm giving you permission. You can live in chaos for a few weeks to a month. It'll be all right. At 10K, you're going to be a skilled practitioner, but you have a glorified hourly job. You're basically a freelancer. At 20K, you're a business operator if you have these systems in place. The skills that got you to 10K, which is probably execution of your thing, client service, technical expertise, are necessary but not sufficient to get you to 20K and beyond. You need to add systems thinking, team leadership, process optimization, hiring acumen, and strategic planning. Not necessarily in that order. So here's your 20K breakthrough checklist. Month 1. You should implement the 5-minute response time, implement speed to lead, implement basic follow-up sequence. It can just be 3 weeks of follow-up for every lead type. You don't have to go crazy. You can build it over time. Continue outreach while optimizing delivery. Do not turn off your lead sourcing, and then implement a setter or inbox manager if possible. And I've given you a lot of free resources to do that as well. Months 2 through 3 is into your B2B evolution. You're going to shift messaging from benefits to risk mitigation. You're going to evolve your pitch and evolve your script. You're going to develop non-decision making criteria conversation frameworks, or just borrow mine that I gave you for free. You're going to build the templates, or just borrow mine that gave you for free. And then you're going to implement a response handler or setter no later than month 3 if things are really cooking. Systems integration, months 4 through 6, further automate lead qualification, create processes that work without you. At this point, your setter should be like really producing and should be even coming up with new ideas for process improvements. Build those in as they prove out. And then you're going to build team capacity, hire back to front. So you always want to start hiring from the back of the house and work your way forward. So you're going to start hiring for fulfillment, people that'll help with service delivery to keep that running. And then you're going to bring forward and hire maybe for sales. And then you're going to get to marketing at the very last part of the funnel. And then when you're ready for scaling, 6 months plus, you're going to optimize systems based on real data. Always use data to guide your decisions. Refine the ideal client profile, charge more money, and develop strategic partnerships and referral systems to line up more parallel lead gen systems. So again, guys, this is a transformation. You have to go from manual responses to systematic lead engagement, from individual sales to enterprise relationship building, from project-based thinking to pipeline-based planning, and from personal delivery to team-based execution, and from reactive problem solving to proactive systems building. The question is just whether you'll evolve your approach or stay trapped by your early success. But you can do it. I've seen many other agency owners do it, and I know you can too. If you're stuck, if you think you might need some help with this, you can also reach out below. There's a further link to book time on my calendar, actually to fill out an application to make sure you're in the right place to be helped by me or my team to grow from 10 to 20K per month. We'd be happy to have that discussion. So thanks for your attention. I hope you got something of value out of this video, and I'll see you guys in the very next video.